All right. So Wandering Sword has been conquered. Um in regards to the ending, um I I get the feeling that there's I'm not entirely sure what more is going to happen, but they've been like the Bai Wei storyline, this storyline that we just did with Buddha's Hollow, and then uh this last one with Moen and Ji Chen Fang or whatever. Uh those as far as I can tell are like the DLC additions. So there's in potentially another ending out there that is, being crafted for the future or something like that. I have no idea. It's just a guess. But yeah, Wandering Sword has been conquered on a Thursday, by the way. On a Thursday. Um my first impressions of the game based off of day 1 was the user interface is not as easy to navigate and brings a lot of tedium to the process. This is made worse by using a controller because navigation doesn't flow well. And that's all of my first impressions based off of day 1 and 2. My overall thoughts on this game are I think I started off being very conflicted about this game and not really enjoying it as much as I feel like I could have. And that didn't necessarily go away for a really long time. Um, I think I think things started clicking for me. Uh, I don't know, maybe like 40 or 50 hours in, where I wouldn't necessarily say I wasn't enjoying the game, but it was a scenario where um like it wasn't hitting the notes that I was hoping it would, and I was kind of getting uh distracted by like potential side quests and things like that. Actually, what the the moments where I started to realize that I'm starting to have fun were the like character sub main story things. Specifically Lang Wu Ching's going after like the sea dragon pirate thing. Um the battle for uh Tenchang City and Beggar Sect, Yao Yao, like all of those, they like that's when I realized like, okay, actually this game is doing some really cool things, and I'm actually enjoying how they set this up and how I got to here. So my overall thoughts are it was a rocky start. It was a rocky like 50 hours or 40 hours or 30 hours or whatever it was. But once I started going down the a certain path, I started to enjoy the game significantly more, and ended up with liking it quite a bit, which is very interesting because this dynamic is not necessarily one that is very common for me. Usually, if I don't like a game as much from the start, I'm not going to like it by the end, no matter what it does. Um, Whereas if I like it from the start, it has the potential to lose that benefit as the game goes on. So this was kind of unique for me. Um, for the story, was it satisfying? Um, I'm gonna say yes with an asterisk. I think there were a lot of satisfying moments in the story. I think there were it's kind of hard to distinguish what was a side quest and what was a main quest because this game uh does their questing a little bit differently. Um you know, there's divergence points, and sometimes you don't even realize you're on a divergence point, and you know, you just make decisions and things like that that completely affect the rest of the game. Like for example, if I never recruited Lang Wu Qing, how would this game differ because of that? Like that seems crazy. And then the whole Bai Wei Yi storyline. What if I kicked him out of my party, or I never recruited him? How would that affect the whole situation there? Um, it's just kind of crazy to think of all the permutations that might exist in this game, and think how things would have changed based off of those permutations. Very very crazy. So I think I'll stick with yes with an asterisk. Um, the there are some things that weren't as satisfying, um, like Buddha's Hollow, for example, and even like this ending here is not all too satisfying. Um, I I was I was really hoping for a a definitive like Yuan Yi is choosing Ouyang Shui, or he's choosing Yao Ji. Um, but you know, we didn't get that definitiveness. So there's that. Did it feel complete? I think it does feel complete. I don't think there's anything lingering. I would have liked to see uh more of this Tianji Palace revival. I would have liked to see how the world evolves once Yuan Yi is the top martial artist. I wanted to see like a glimpse of what the 30 years of peace look like, and then what happens after the 30 years of peace. Very, very interested in what happens next. So maybe that's a sequel, or you know, another game, or maybe not. You know, I don't know. But I'll say it feels complete. How was the pacing? I think the pacing was pretty good for the most part. I think I got distracted a lot of times doing various other things, and I do think that there were stumbles along the way that usually revolved around Wu Dang, like side quests or whatever. But those events were usually pretty short because I was already exploring and doing a bunch of things already. So they didn't require too much. And I do kind of appreciate how they did those, because sometimes you'll go to like other places that are important to the story, and then you'll come back to those places, and it'll kind of feel like it was important to do that even if it wasn't. Um, so I think the pacing was pretty good. All right. For thoughts on the story, lots of talking. So much talking. there's there's a lot of dialogue in this game. Um, Not to mention that This game I believe is $25 on Steam and is probably the longest indie game I have ever played by probably a significant margin. Um, it's insane, and I don't even think, like, I didn't do all the side quests. I didn't look for everything and go everywhere and 100% this game. The the amount of stuff that you can interact with and the amount of additional talking elements that you can encounter is pretty crazy. Um, it's yeah, it's there's so much dialogue in this game. Um, and there's also variations of repeated dialogue as well. Names, places, and organizations are constantly restated when it can just be they or them. Um, this is something that I kind of uh, like reconciled with, I suppose. I was definitely bothered by this a lot, but just kind of shrugged it off as this is like this style of game in writing. And I will give this approach credit as well. It allows you to familiarize yourself with specific people, locations, and things like that much faster and easier than it would be if it was a more like Western style of writing. There weren't a lot of times where I would come across somebody and be like, oh, I don't recognize that name, or I can't, uh, I don't know who that is in comparison to someone else because I've seen the name so many times in association to various things. And there's also the aspect of this game where characters like they start with their last name and then their first name is last. Um, and there's a lot of characters that have the same first last name kind of thing, Ouyang Shui and Master Ouyang. Um, um, you get the idea there. I can't think of any other examples for some reason. Um, but it it makes it so much easier, I guess, to figure out who those characters are and whatnot. So it it was very annoying, but I grew to appreciate it as the game went on. The talking less as much. I do think they could have toned it down some. I don't think they need to have their full names every single time. So there's room for improvement there. I think there's a decent amount of progression that keeps things flowing, starting off with the wanting revenge, and eventually getting that revenge, only to learn that Yuan Yi has been learning the wind and cloud method all along, was a great twist. Now everyone is going after him. Very curious how they bring it to a conclusion. And I still agree with that. I do like the story progression and how they approached it. Um, I think there was some confusion for me there where Yao Ji was like, "You should go to Zhuanhuo Cult," and we were like, "We're gonna go to Wu Dang and become a Wu Dang disciple." And I didn't really feel like I had the opportunity to become a Zhuanhuo Cult member. So there's that. But I there were a lot of kind of twists and turns that I wasn't expecting. Like I never thought that we were learning the wind and cloud method all along and whatnot. So um, I enjoyed the journey and the progression of that journey. Despite all the politics going on, I'm actually finding myself able to follow along. This could just be a side effect to all the plot dumping that happens, though. So I mentioned earlier that like names are said in their entirety with no shortening or what have you, very often, and uh, that has provided benefits for me. Um, but there is also the aspects of like you'll just be given a ton of information and you'll have to wait for that to get repeated. So uh, there's benefits and negatives, I guess. The character focused side quests are definitely among the best quests in the game, helping Leng Wuqing maneuver his way to getting revenge on the pirates and rebelling against the system or engaging in Soul Wrecking Bird's questline and the Pili School Myriad Shots being examples of really nice quests. Um, yeah, those character focused quests are without a doubt the best experiences that I've had in this game. Um, and I wish I wish this game made it easier to understand who is recruitable on your team and how to get those characters on your team, and like do their side quests and stuff like that. Because if I realized that a lot sooner and kind of connected the dots better, I might have spent more time recruiting characters and doing their side quests and things like that. I definitely tapered off from those for a while, especially because I mean there are a lot of characters and some of them don't seem as important as others, and some of them aren't as cool as Lang Wu Jing. So I mean, there's a lot to compete with. But I would have liked to recruit all the characters. That was certainly a goal that I had, and it just kind of tapered off because uh, finding all the characters isn't as easy as it could be, or what have you. I like the relationship that Yuan Yi and Ouyang Shui have been developing. I really feel like it's been a natural like friendship kind of thing that could grow into love or something like that. I really like their dynamics. I think their dialogue with each other is really nice. It feels genuine. It feels natural. I really like whenever they have their kind of one-on-one conversations. It's a treat, I suppose. The Gu Segui slash Bai Wei storyline was pretty awesome. That that was probably like a huge highlight for this game was the Perpetual Sanctum uh, storyline. That one was super cool. Uh, just learning who Gu Sagui actually is and how he's maneuvered everything to come to this perfect culmination point. And it's it was just really really cool. I'm glad it played out the way that it did, because it just made it so much more fascinating to me. Um, yeah, that was awesome. The Kama storyline doesn't feel as fleshed out as the rest. Kama just kind of appears out of nowhere and then throws the world into chaos. Could have been nice to interact with him prior to these events, assuming they didn't, and I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, I don't remember Kama being important or mentioned or anything, even his cult, before he shows up. And I think there would have been a lot of benefit to at least introducing him and or his cult, before all of that, and um, kind of, I don't know, like we don't have to fight him or anything like that, but I kind of want I want to know more about the Kama cult and why everybody hates them and what he did, to do all of those things. And I want to kind of understand his perspective better, and like versus the perspective of other people and whatnot. And the way that it just played out, it was just like he showed up and everyone was like, "This guy is bad," and we were just like, "Okay, this guy is bad. Let's go kill him." So I wish it was fleshed out much more than that. In a similar way to the Bai Wei storyline, I think we could have gotten to know, like in the same ways that we got to slowly learn about Perpetual Sanctum and what's going on there, and how we can affect those things. I wish those elements existed for the Kama storyline, or if they did exist, were made more obvious to interact with. For gameplay mechanics and design, what gameplay elements stand out? The user interface and user experience isn't great to interact with. This is probably the biggest and largest criticism that I have for this game. Um, it's it's not great to go through the interface of this game and interact with the various elements of it because it doesn't really flow all too well. For example, meridians don't give you any indication that you're progressing from them, or progressing them from the menu. So you have to cycle through them to continue down the path. There's no immediate indicator what they specialize in. So it feels like a necessity to, air quotes, relearn what the nodes give to see if that path is where I want to go. So each meridian path like specializes in certain things. Like one of them has evasion and kind of removes the negatives of being attacked from various sides. One of them is, more defensive, gives you defense and HP, and allows you to like block damage and things like that. There's one that boosts your crit and does things when you crit. And it would have been nice to be able to associate these themes for those meridian paths without actually having to select them and go into it, find that meridian path, and then mouse over all the abilities to remember which path that is. It's just not easy to identify them. I do appreciate not only the inventory size, which is a lot if it isn't infinite. I also appreciate the tab filter options. Um, I Okay, I do have that. Yeah, I like that. There's a bunch of tabs at the top, so I don't have to scroll down a bunch of like everything in the bags. Basically, I can sort by armor and weapons and quest items and things like that. And so I appreciate that, and I do like that. Um, I didn't have to constantly go back to town or whatever to sell, all the items, or um, deconstruct them for like blacksmithing or whatever. I appreciate that. I do think inventory sorting could be more robust. Granted, I'm hoarding basically everything, but I would like to see sorting options for the highest stats. It would also be very helpful if items that were lower stats than currently equipped gear were dimmed out or provided an icon. Yeah, so I think there's room for improvement in the inventory sorting capabilities. It is kind like the way the interface is laid out and how you interact with it. It does get obnoxious to have to cycle through all these items to see if they are worth equipping for any one particular character. I think there could be some quality of life improvements there that can help speed up that process so that you don't have to go through every item. Um, yeah. Uh, on a controller, it's even worse. If the controller behaved like a mouse instead of having to go through every box, I think it would be better. The so like the controller works for this game, but the controller doesn't work for everything in this game. And the game does say that the controller is not going to work for everything. You know, there are some things that won't work for it. Um, I would love to see more done to get the controller up to snuff in playing this game. You know, maybe not a lot of people play with controllers. You know, I don't know, but I will say that this game does seem like playing it with a mouse and keyboard is a feasible thing to do. So there is definitely that option if one wanted to do so. Um, but the like navigating with the controller just doesn't feel natural. It's it makes the process take more time and is more tedious than it needs to be. So I would really love to see that improved. The amount of party members is quite staggering, and on top of that, the variety of who is recruitable is also cool. I, you know, starting off in this game and just having Yuan Yi, and then finally getting, I think his name was Wei Huo, and like I finally got my second party member, and I was so excited, and I was like, yeah. And then I go out into the world, and I'm looking for other party members, and I have no idea what's going on and whatnot. But like coming to the realization that I could recruit this character, and this is how I, gift them things so that they'll join me and whatnot, and figuring out who is recruitable and who is not. These were all like fascinating things for me to kind of uncover, and just realizing that there's a ton of characters that you can recruit is like a very unique feeling that I have towards this game, because most games out there, especially in the JRPG space, like who's going to join your party before they join your party. But in most respects for this game, a lot of characters that you can recruit are optional characters. Like they don't have to join your party. And it's so cool to play a game that kind of does that, where it's like, you can go through this entire game by yourself if you want to, which would be a terrible idea, but you could do that, and just it offered a great dynamic, and I appreciate that a lot. Yuan Yi is so unbelievably weak, and it's actually extremely irritating when comparing him to not only his companions but the enemies he faces. This was so obnoxious. I it's super crazy to me that for the first 30 to 40 hours of this game, Yuan Yi was basically a liability. If I removed him for literally any other party member, um, my battles would go exponentially better. And then just like one, I don't know, like it was 1 hour, maybe 2 hours, I all of a sudden became extremely overpowered and unbelievably strong. Just like in the span of 1 to 2 hours, I crossed over the gap and just became a god that was unkillable. And you know, it it was just kind of weird to encounter that particular scenario, which I appreciate a lot more because I wanted to be strong and I wanted to feel strong. And going through this game feeling weak, when all of my party members felt strong, just didn't feel good at all. And so it is it is kind of unfortunate that it took so long for me to feel strong, but once I became strong, there was no going back. Like, I was unstoppable at that point. And that to me felt good. I don't necessarily care about the challenge. I'd rather just go through the experience and whatnot, without having to be overly challenged. And I I I was challenged quite a bit, and then I wasn't. So I don't know. Think about that however you will. The affection system is a fresh approach to interacting with characters in the world. It's very cool that you can duel almost anyone and basically rob them of their stuff, including the stuff you gave them. There's a lot of aspects about the affection system that I feel like I haven't seen in any other games before. And the ability to kind of fight people and have them give you your stuff brings a new dynamic, to the experience, because there are some characters where like this guy is clearly out. I'm no match for them. But you could always just try fighting them anyways, and maybe you'll get lucky. And there was a couple of scenarios where that happened to me. Um, that that one point where I got like I I was on the I I fought the ghost of like the Wind and Cloud guy, the Taoist guy, and I was losing. Like there there were some paths where I could see myself getting to where I needed to be, but it was so unbelievably difficult because of his reflect damage thing. So it just didn't seem all too feasible. And then I go do some story quests or whatever, and I get the 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 Nanjiang mantra thing, and that right there was like, whoa. And then I got, or maybe it was the Hydra move first, um, one or both, where I was just like, this is so strong that I think I can use this to make up for some of the deficiencies that I have. And it actually worked. And I don't think I was stronger than the ghost. It's just like that little edge pushed me to where I needed to go. And then the items that I got propelled me to overpowered status. And, it was history from there. Um, so it's just like little things like that you can interact with the affection system, where you can you can fight somebody and then lose, and just like go do something else and come back and then fight him again and get these really cool items and recipes and meridian points and all kinds of cool stuff. So I like that. Uh, I like that you have to put in some effort into recruiting characters, either in raising affection by items, quests, or both. I did think that this was a cool way to kind of interact with various elements of items in the game, and um, it was it was an interesting way to kind of approach characters and be like, okay, I got to hoard, as much stuff as possible so that if I need to recruit somebody, I can get their affection up, as high as possible. And I didn't sell very many, if anything, in this game. So there's that. Um, it's quite a different approach to effectively having all party members be optional by design, even if they aren't in practice. Um, Yeah, I kind of touched on this before. I definitely don't know like how this game works without party members, but I'm very curious to see if there's any other people out there that have been doing playthroughs of this game and kind of showing all the permutations that you can do because it seems like there's a lot. Um, Having the ability to lose fights and you don't get a game over is actually pretty refreshing. You don't see this very often. Yeah, there's been a number of fights. They could be like side main quest or side quest battles or whatever. But there's been a number of fights where I've felt that I need to win this fight in order to move on, and I don't get punished for losing. Um, I've learned later on when I became more overpowered that when you win those fights, you get like strong items and useful things. So I definitely appreciate not being forced to go through like difficulty spikes and things like that. Um, I enjoyed that. Um, the bonuses on abilities feel very awkward. They are sometimes very detailed, other times lacking detail, all while giving what feels like impactful buffs. Um, yeah, this is a very weird thing for this game. The the abilities in of themselves can do very cool things, but sometimes they're most of the time they're very wordy and just have too much text on what they do. And I think this game would benefit a lot from simplification on what the abilities do. And maybe um, the more higher level abilities get, like there's like red and yellow and orange and things like and green and whatnot. Like the higher up towards red that you get, maybe then you start to add more um, like complicatedness, I suppose. But yeah, it was, I don't know, it it's just kind of crazy to get an ability and be like, okay, it takes up like the full screen on all the text on it, and even after reading the entirety of the text, I still don't understand what the ability does and how it interacts with things and what certain keywords do. um yeah, it's crazy. The crafting system seems like a system I want to engage in, but it's difficult to invest in. It's very expensive and money isn't exactly plentiful. Recipes for worthwhile items don't seem to be plentiful, so the likelihood that something is worth crafting is small. Yeah, this I tinkered with crafting a couple of times, and it quickly came to the realization for me that it's just too expensive to engage in, and I don't have the recipes to to make it feel like it's worth the investment that I'm putting into it. And this is during the Yuan Yi is weak phase as well, which is probably the most important phase for the crafting to actually feel that way. Now, granted, could probably go around the world and duel people and get recipes and get money, all that other stuff. But that's a lot of investment just to get an item that's probably going to be like 30 more attack than what you're currently using or whatever, and it's not going to necessarily be super impactful on your upcoming fights. Like, regardless of what happens, Yuan Yi is still not only going to be weak, but he's going to be the weakest person on your squad. So I couldn't quite find the desire to go through the crafting system. There's a lot of systems that aren't explained, and I still have no idea how they work. What does it mean for the name of an enemy to be white, green, and red? How do stats affect other stats? For example, how much strength equals X attack? There's even more stuff than that I can't think of off the top of my head. But like, the game doesn't tell you that the little like flame symbol, at least I don't think it tells you. I don't remember the game telling me that the flame symbol means that those characters could be recruited. And like those are the only, characters that can be recruited. I remember when I first left Wutong Village, you know, I walked up to some random person and tried to get his affection up to 60 so that I could recruit him. And like he never had the invite option to begin with. And like I didn't know the difference there. I just thought I could recruit, whoever. And that didn't work out for me. And it kind of set me behind a little bit, maybe. I don't know. The world map is awesome. It's filled with locations and looks very large, but is also actually easy to traverse, and fast travel even exists. I really like the way that they handled the world map for this. I like that you can walk around on it. And I also have the point here. I also like the various random characters that run around on it. Gives it some extra life that little to no games have. It was like, even though I didn't interact with those characters hardly at all, it was just nice to see that they're just running around doing their own things and going to where they need to go. Um, it's one of those things where it's like you may not necessarily appreciate it until you actually encounter it, and then you're like, wow, that was a really good idea, and I really like how they implemented that. Being able to steal temporary party members' equipment is very overpowered, and I love it. This didn't necessarily come into play very often, but there were a couple of times where people would temporarily join my party, and I'm just like, yoink! And that was very very fun. Uh, very very fun. For combat is very strange because it seems like a tactics game on the surface, but I don't feel like it plays as one. It does share a lot of similarities, such as bonuses for attacking sides in the back, but it feels more like an active time battle system on a grid. Despite these side and back attack bonuses, I don't feel like positioning is very important. There's also a lack of familiarity of what to expect. Enemies using abilities can do any number of effects, and just seeing them use the ability wouldn't give you an indication what buffs they've acquired or even what ability they've used. So yeah, I think we had this was brought up much earlier in the playthrough, where it's like I can see why people would look at this and be like, yeah, this is a tactics game, but I don't necessarily think it has the same, like it doesn't hit the same things that I look for in a tactics game. I feel like tactics games are about positioning and unit deployment and and kind of those things basically. And I don't like this game doesn't really do that. Um, you can't really choose where your characters are starting on the map. You can choose which predetermined spot they will appear, but sometimes like those will reverse. I don't know if that's because there's like if an enemy touches you from the back, then you start reversed or whatever. But yeah, it's very very interesting um, to like see the similarities and see how this game in many respects maybe should be a tactics game, but like deviates to where it doesn't feel like one. And I think I'll still ride the train of I don't think it's a tactics game. But you know, who knows? What do I know? I don't know. I'm calling it an RPG. Uh, Status effects and buff upkeep feels completely unmanageable. There's so many, and they can trigger for a variety of different things. So earlier, I had mentioned that abilities have so many things going on with them, like really long descriptions, and they do so many things. And when you get a buff, you get this little icon on your character. And when I say little, I mean it's very little. And when you get a debuff, you get this little icon. And the only way to know what buffs and debuffs you have are to mouse over those icons. But to keep track of all of that is an unimaginable amount of work. Um, and there are some, like, I've never felt that there's been a necessity to keep track of that, but there there are some abilities in this game that benefit heavily off of knowing what your buffs and debuffs are. So I I don't know how you fix this issue, but it does feel like there needs to be a some sort of like indicator or something um to let you know that one ability is going to be like buffed by what you have already on your character, like like a golden outline or something to let you know, like, hey, you have all the stacks of this buff and you can use this ability and it will be significantly stronger or whatever. But you know, stuff and stuff of the stuff and stuff. The different weapon types don't seem to be on the same or even a similar level. Pole arms and staves feel incredibly weak. Um, I will say that I still feel that pole arms and staves are weak, but once Li Yuanxing, I believe, got the move that like hits in a line 5 or 6 squares ahead. That move is insane. Um, and that move by itself, like, uh, makes pole arms uh use like usable. But it's only that move. Like every other move is so disappointing. Plus, there's not a lot of great pole arms as far as weapons in this game either. You see how long it took me to get a pole arm that was red, like a unique pole arm weapon? It took until I did a side quest to kill the impermanences. And when if I didn't do that side quest, it would have taken I don't think I've ever gotten a good polearm after that. So like that to me is crazy. Hidden weapons seem the most insane. I think I still agree with this. Um, Hidden weapons, there's just you have range on them. You can reduce enemies' movement speed with them. Um, you can benefit from uh, poison abnormalities, which I'll get to when I get to swords, which is next. Um, like it's crazy the things that you can do with hidden weapons and like the latitude and versatility that hidden weapons have. Um, Plus, there's like I don't think I got any unique hidden weapons that were on the same level as like some of the other weapons we can't, like the Polis snake sword, for example. Like I don't think we got any of those types of hidden weapons. We did get one, but it wasn't like super strong or anything like that. And it was very late in the game. Um, Swords seem okay. Um, I I still agree with this. I think there are scenarios where swords feel strong, and it was my evasion. Like there was this point where I wasn't exactly strong, but I had these ability setups where I could stack evasion buffs and kind of maneuver my way into winning fights that I probably shouldn't be able to because of those two sword moves that I had. And then me being able to reset their chi bar and kind of take advantage of that. Um, there were a lot of um, like benefits to that particular build that I was rocking. I think where swords really become strong is having the ability to poison somebody and then use the move to hit them. And if they're poisoned when you hit them, you get 50% of your chi bar back. I think that combo is probably the strongest combo in the game. Um, there are some scenarios where you don't want to do that. Obviously, I'd rather hit 6 or 7 enemies with the that cultivation move, the pew pew move, than dance around all these enemies and stuff like that. But um, just being able to like getting more turns makes the battles much easier to deal with, and it gets your stuff off cooldown faster, and it gives you so much more like latitude to do things. So uh I think because of that combo, I would probably say now that swords are probably strong. I don't think they're the best because hidden weapons can do the same thing, and hidden weapons have more versatility in my opinion, but I think swords are strong. Um because of that specific combo. Sabers seem like they have some unique utility, but feel lacking. Yeah, I haven't really delved very much into sabers, but every single time I look at a saber ability, I just like I feel disappointed by it. Um, it doesn't have the same range as hidden weapons. It doesn't have the same expansiveness in terms of like how many squares is being targeted as hidden weapons. It doesn't um like it's very close quarters, whereas swords and hidden weapons can be at a little bit of a distance. Even pole arms can be at a distance later on. It just it was rough times for sabers. Plus, I could not find a saber worth using to save my life, man. It was so unbelievably disappointing. Like I there's been a couple of scenarios where it's like I think I might want to use a saber user, but I don't have a good saber weapon, so like I'm not gonna do it. It's kind of sad. Fist weapons feel underwhelming compared to swords. I I feel like fist weapons are probably second worst, maybe. Um, it's just fist weapons have the same weaknesses as sabers, but like they they still miss out on like area attacking and things like that. I don't think there's a single ranged fist attack at all. I think the most you can attack is 3 squares ahead, and I think that's a like a mighty move or a unique move or something like that. You know, so it has like a 2 turn cooldown or something. Everything else is just kind of in your face, and those in your face effects don't feel very strong or impactful. I I wasn't having a great time with fist weapons. That being said, found a lot of fist weapons in this game. So, um, you know, if there's abilities that you find you like, there's plenty to choose from. For cardinal sins, I have side quests are required to. Oh yeah, okay. Side quests are required to progress the main story. These are the Wu Dang affiliation coin quests. The main story missions are side quests, Wu Dang affiliation coin quests, and forcing the player to use certain party members. Uh, I, I, there's been a lot of times where I've been put into a scenario that I was not prepared for. I am also going to add removing a key party member without sufficient replacement. Lang Wu Ching was removed from my party a lot. Wu Yuanqing was removed from my party a lot. So put that on there. I don't think there's anything else. I think there's well, there could be an argument to be made for backup party earns less experience. This is actually something that I didn't talk about in this game, but I did recognize it that this game actually doesn't have any experience, which is very unorthodox for an RPG. Um, Extremely unorthodox. And I don't necessarily miss experience not being around. I What I do like about experience is it gives you a gauge of where you are in comparison to other people. And so when you have things like levels, you can see how strong you are versus other people. But this game opts to use other stats to to let you know who's stronger and who's not, like, you know, HP and attack and defense and chi level and stuff like that. Um, so very, very interesting way to go about it. The reason why backup party earns less experience could be considered here is because there are scenarios where characters aren't earning martial points, and martial points is kind of like experience in this game. You use them to power up your abilities, and your abilities, specifically like cultivation, are kind of equivalent to levels, because the more cultivation levels that you get for a particular cultivation technique, the more HP, the more MP. Sometimes you get attack. You also get meridian points. So, you know, there's that. Let's see. For miscellaneous sound and music, I will be buying the soundtrack for this game when I'm done. I enjoy quite a few tracks. There was even a track towards the end there that, you know, hadn't been introduced yet, and I was like, "Ooh, you know, it's got, you know, a little bop to it." So definitely gonna be doing that. There's no voice acting. For the graphics are the first thing that caught my eye for this game. Um, if you're familiar with the HD 2D style that has uh, kind of, like, I don't want to say brought back turn-based RPGs, but like it kind of reinvigorated the RPG space a little bit. And this game feels like an HD 2D game. There's not a lot of games out here that look like Wandering Sword. And I really like the sprite work. And I really like The usage of visual effects and like even the sound design was really nice. I think the pixel art is really well done. So you know, props there. The portraits were all really well done as well. I don't really have any criticisms of the graphics and all other stuff. Um, so really well done. Is the game worth recommending? That one's going to be an interesting one, and that's primarily because there's a lot of talking in this game, and I think Western cultures are probably uh, less interested in these type of storytelling techniques and whatnot. But me personally, I would definitely recommend this to people who like playing RPGs and like experiencing, you know, like grand epic stories and things like that. Um, I think that for $25, there is a significant amount of value in this game if you were one person who assigns, you know, hours to a dollar or something like that. So, yeah, I would say this is definitely worth recommending. If the developer is watching, so I think I can definitely say that it took some time for this game to click for me. It wasn't going in the direction that I was hoping it would, but slowly but surely the puzzle pieces kind of fell into place, and I started to see the vision of what was happening, and that combined with engaging in super awesome quest lines that like propelled my interest, you know, like tenfold. Really, really helped me out. Um, if I have any suggestions, I think I I think a couple of things that really turned me away at the start was Yuan Yi's weakness in comparison to the challenges that he had in front of him. I think it's it's not a lot of fun to play as Yuan Yi when he's not strong. Um, so if not reducing the difficulty of the challenges that Yuan Yi is facing, then making it more clear that a player can seek out other aspects of the game and the story and the setting and whatnot to gain more power, make it more clear, you know, oh, I can recruit somebody over here. Maybe like there's an icon or something like that above a specific town. Or there were some instances where after engaging in a quest, you would leave the town and you would be like, oh, maybe I should go, you know, visit this place. It would be nice if things like that um, were added to the quest logs so that people wouldn't forget about them. Um, just like a lot of, I guess I want to say quality of life features just to make the beginning of the game flow better. Because if someone can get through the beginning of the game and through the entire Tianlong gang plot, from from that point going forward, the game gets into awesome mode. But to reach the Tianlong gang end plot and everything after that, it takes a while to get there, and um, there's not a lot of assistance to help somebody get there. So that's what I would like to see. I would also like to see some improvements for the controller and the menu navigation. I think there's a lot of improvement to be made there. And do I want a sequel? Absolutely. I've even been considering, like if another like story plot comes out for this game, do I come back to this and play it? And this is not something that I normally even consider when playing games, but I'm very, very interested in what could happen. Um, like what more could be added. As a matter of fact, while I'm here, did I even do the Echoes of Ash and Dust? Um, uh, Thingamabobber? Like, I guess I did, because that's Yuan Yi there, and that's the Tian Shan sect guy. So I guess Echoes of Ash and Dust must be um comma and then the Yuan invasion. Um yeah. Thing is like, oh no, okay. I like this right here. I've been waiting to come across this, and I was like, I've not come across this yet. But this was the comma storyline. And yeah, Tianjin. Okay, so yeah, we did do this. We did do that. All right, that was actually a lot of stuff. That's crazy for a free update, by the way. So yeah, to reiterate my overall thoughts, it was a rocky start, but there, I hit that click moment, and then the rest was history, and I enjoyed myself quite a bit. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the plot development. I enjoyed that I finally became overpowered and just busted up a bunch of suckers. I appreciated it all. It was absolutely wonderful. But that's where I'm gonna end it for today. I don't think I have anything else. Um, Today is Thursday, which means that I get to take a Friday off. And you know who needs a Friday off? This guy. Been streaming for 19 days, reading 4 hours straight, basically. It's been getting a lot. But I'll be back Monday, 7 a.m. Pacific time, and we will play a brand new game. Who knows what that will be? But yeah, with that, see ya the next time I see ya. Peace.